Good morning. Welcome to this webinar. My name's Liz Rowlinson, editor of Place in the Sun, and this is called the ABC of NLV. Everything you need to know about getting a non-lucrative visa and moving to Spain. I'm here with Sun lawyers, Mark McMillan. Hi, Mark.
Hello, I'm Mark McMillan. I head our relocation department in Cabo Roig on the Orihuela Costa.
Great, thank you. And also your happy clients, John and Leslie Powson. Good morning, both of you.
Morning, Les. How are you?
Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on the webinar to share your thoughts of your experience. So before we're going to whiz through as many basics as we can about what is the NLV, how do you get one, things to be aware of. So there's quite a lot of material to cover. So we're going to start with the basics. I mean, the NLV is the most popular visa for people moving to Spain since Brexit. And lots of happy clients, lots of people have moved there, as Mark, many of through your Sun lawyers, Mark. So first of all, the fundamentals. Why do British people without an EU passport need to get a visa now?
Well, since, as you rightly said, Brexit, we're a non-EU country, and citizens with a British passport will require a visa to be able to relocate to, for example, the Schengen area. And basically, we don't have our free right to relocate anymore. We do have visa-free travel, so we can enjoy the 90-day rule. But from now on, since non-EU status, we need a visa to be able to relocate.
Brilliant. And the exception is if you've got Italian, Irish heritage, whatever, and you have an EU passport, that means you don't have to go through the visa process.
Exactly. If you're lucky enough, or your spouse has an EU passport, then you are able to actually just move to Spain, relocate there, and basically apply for residency as an EU citizen and an online application for the spouse to the immigration. And that will grant a 5-year residence permit for the spouse.
Yeah, there's an amazing amount of people doing that, isn't there? If there's a possibility. So the non-lucrative visa, the NLV, it's best suited. Well, you're not meant to be employed in Spain on this visa. It's for non-working people, isn't it? Can you just explain who does it suit?
It suits someone that, or people that are able to support themselves financially for at least a year, because that will be the first permit will be over a year period. The visa will grant you, the ability to arrive to Spain and get a 1-year residence permit. So this will allow you to basically, live there, get a residence, but you're not able to have gainful employment. You won't be able to be in receipt of a salary or be self-employed. So you'll have to prove that you've stopped all these types of incomes. You can have other forms of incomes, but not gainful employment.
And so are you allowed to remote work on this visa?
You're not allowed to remote work. Well, the alternatives could be if you're a remote worker for a foreign company, one of the other main applications, which we may dedicate to another webinar, would be the digital nomad permit.
Yeah, that's now the other popular visa, isn't it? Because the golden visa in Spain has ended. So these are the two, the digital nomad visa and the non-lucrative visa are the two main avenues.
Exactly. That's the two main avenues for non-EU applicants, not just British, but other non-EU. We've got many clients from all over the world who really would love to live in Spain, and these are the kind of main options.
Sure. Yeah, and now let's talk about the paperwork, Mark. There are quite a few bits of paperwork. It's Spain, but with an expert like you, it's not completely impossible. So could we just talk about briefly what are the key things to know?
Yeah, we need to provide validly. I mean, we need to have evidence of the financial means, which is this year €2,400 per month, plus if you have a dependent family member such as a spouse or a child, then we need to add €600 a month. Typically for a married couple, that'll be €3,000. We would need to prove that bond, but that could be shown in monthly incomes or a year's worth of that amount for that 1 year permit. Typically 28,800 for an individual, and a couple, two people together, €36,000. We'll need to show that you've got healthcare. Someone with a state pension can gain access to an S1. This is for exportable healthcare or private health insurance. And we'll need to validly show that it's, been paid for, that it's fully, up and running. But the start date would be for the arrival to Spain, because this, obviously that's when you should be covered. We need to show a clean criminal record from the countries you've lived for the last 5 years, a medical certificate that you're healthy, you're clear of any, disease, etc. And we'll be able to show other documents like a marriage certificate. I mentioned if we need to show the bond or a birth certificate, the police check, medical certificate, and the bond, like from public offices, would need to be legalized with a apostille and a sworn translation. That's the key things.
The marriage certificate is often a bit of a little glitch in the process, isn't it? Because you have to get a marriage certificate issued within the last 3 months. Is that correct?
Yes, it needs to be updated with an issue date within 3 months. And, the medical would have that 3-month deadline too, but the police checks now are valid for 6 months.
True, and that's also a good point, that if you've got married somewhere outside the UK, like Las Vegas, I've had a few people, it can take longer to get hold of that license. So it's just to beware if that's the case, you're getting all your bits of paperwork together.
Exactly. Timing on paperwork, some expire quicker than others. So starting, at the right time basically is key to this process.
Brilliant. So it sounds a bit bewildering to some people, but that's why Sun Lawyers can help people like John and Leslie, which we'll come on to shortly. How do you support people, Mark?
Well, we can offer prospective clients a first free consultation. Sometimes we can do it in our office, one of our offices, or over the telephone, or even a Zoom call like we're doing today, just to really go through and get the right timing. We need to think about the finances and the taxation. My background is including taxation, so I'm a good point of reference to, look through, make sure that you comply with the eligibility, that you've got the financial means, basically, and we can really set a plan, put a plan into action, so that we can have a successful process. Submit the documents, prepare them all in the right order. Basically, we will assist clients, if they did have a requirement for further paperwork, we'll assist them too. In the case of an archive of their application because of a missing document, we would assist, and we can appeal any kind of rejection or archival. So we can assist clients, and we'll persevere until we have that visa.
Great. And the process starts in the UK, doesn't it?
Exactly. We do need to prepare paperwork, present it. Now we have an international company called BLS International, where you drop off the paperwork. They will process with the consulate. Consulate will then communicate with the immigration office where you'll be living, get the response, and then get the passports returned with a visa sticker. It can take around 3 months, the process, typically between 2 to 3 months it's taking right now.
Okay, I think it makes sense to now talk to Leslie and John, who can then talk about the whole process and how they did it. So, John and Leslie, you've bought a bungalow in, I believe, near Alicante, near Torrevieja.
Correct. Yes, Los Altos.
Yes, Los Altos, in November. But and you're retiring to Spain. But tell me, let's start off. Why did you want to move to Spain?
Obviously, for the weather, as everyone does, and also quality of life. We felt that we could get more in Spain than back in the UK and enjoy our retirement to a great, better extent than here.
Yes, I think the sort of the area where you're going to is very therapeutic, isn't it? Around the salt marsh, the salt pans and everything.
That's right. It's supposedly has its own microclimate and one of the healthiest spots around in Spain. So hopefully we'll find out.
I hope so too. So basically your journey, I believe, started at Place in the Sun exhibition, where you went to a couple of them to start trying to find out how to do this.
That's correct. I think we started with the one in Manchester. This is before we had any idea that we could even afford to do it, just to get the background to know what the process was, and to find out if we met that criteria, so we could fulfill our dream.
And you found that quite useful. I think you went to some seminars, which Mark and I might have been doing back then on Spain and moving there, and you met Mark, I presume, at one of these.
We actually met Mark in his office.
Oh,
so we'd heard of Sun Lawyers through A Place in the Sun. We may have spoke to Mark when we spoke to so many people. It's hard, but it wasn't until we were in Spain and got recommended to go to Sun Lawyers that we met up with Mark.
Brilliant. Now, something you told, something I think which would be very useful, and you were very wise to do, is that when you found out about how much income you needed to show, that actually affected how much you spent on your property. Wasn't that correct? That was you didn't want to overspend because you knew you needed to show financial resources going forward.
Yeah, that's correct. Obviously, the purchase price, you've got the taxes on top. I think it's around about the purchase price, but also with our pensions, we're not in a position that our pension covered all of the required funds.
Yeah.
So we had money in our savings account, which we knew we had to leave there, which we couldn't afford to buy a more expensive house, because that would have left us struggling to prove we had the financial means to support ourselves. So we've just left it in the savings account, so it will cover the renewals in year 2, 3, and 4, 5.
And we did a tick list of exactly what we wanted in a house, and a lot of it revolved taking the dog out with us and things like that. So we needed a lot of outside space, and this one ticked all the boxes. So.
Perfect. And just Mark, I'm just going to bring you in briefly on this point, because it's a really key point that some people come unstuck with, but Leslie and John were very sensible on this, is that when you renew after a year, you have to show 2 years of financial resources, don't you? And then another 2 years after 3 years. Is that correct?
Yes, after the first year, there's a 2-year renewal. And basically, if you have a state pension, for example, or private pensions, obviously you can have 2 years worth of that. But any shortfall from the 2,400 or 3,000 for a married couple, just times it by 24, and that would give you the figure, 2 years of that difference. So we will need that for the 2-year renewal after the first year, and then for year 4 and 5, another 2-year renewal. But once we're in the year 4 and 5, And if you've abided by the 6-month rule, which will basically you need to be more than 6 months in Spain with this kind of permit. Also, if you've abide by the 10-month rule, which means over the whole 5 years that you were more than less than 10 months out of Spain, then you can switch to a 5-year long-term permit, where we don't need to show the financial means anymore or the healthcare, but you would need to have healthcare over all that period.
Brilliant. Okay, so John and Leslie, you're of UK state pension age, so you were able to get the S1, weren't you?
That's correct, which we found we didn't know before we went to the Place in the Sun exhibitions, which was a huge benefit for us.
That was my biggest worry.
Yes, because healthcare is a very expensive per year, isn't it? So that was a massive. So you got the S1 from the UK before. Have you got that sorted yet?
We pre-registered it, and it doesn't get finalised until we actually move to Spain and start initiating getting our TIE, our identity card, and then we can register fully for the Spanish health service then.
Brilliant. Okay, so just the timing of your process, Leslie, when did you first, was it November that you started sort of getting the documents together for the visa? Let's just talk about how long it's taken you.
Well, we visited Mark's office in November and had our initial interview with him, and he went through everything with the costing and what was needed, and he gave us a checklist and everything. And so, yes, from November, we started planning then of what we needed to do in regards to bank statements, start collecting our bank statements. And then when we went back to Spain in, I think it was the February, and started, actually processing it, doing our, through Mark, doing the police records check, etc.
The will.
Yep.
Yeah, and from then, which we applied for, I think we applied for the police background in the February, and it came through in the March. So we went back out to Spain again in March, April time, and then obviously took all our paperwork that we had with us, and we also had our medical certificate.
Certificate, yeah.
Well, we did that whilst we were out there because it's one, I think it's easier to do in Spain and also cheaper to do in Spain.
Yes.
So once we got all that together, it was basically coming back to the UK and putting it all together and making that appointment to present all the documentation to apply for our visa.
Great. So my understanding is, yeah, you have all your documents in the file. I think Mark will brief you about sort of how to organise that. And then what happens at the appointment?
Well, we made the appointment. Obviously, also like from Sun Lloyd's, they included a covering letter, which sort of highlighted why, how we meet the criteria and everything, both in English and Spanish. So we went along to the Manchester office. You get an allotted time on your appointment, and they're pretty good on their timekeeping. We got there a little bit earlier, and there was no problem at all. Presented the documentation. They take it in a certain formation. They ask like for various things first. Handed it all over. They sorted it through, which took about probably 15 minutes each. And then they send you off to have your photograph taken. You pay the bill, and that's it really. I think the whole process took about 30 minutes in total.
Great. So it's not really like an interview. It's just more like a document checking exercise.
Yeah, that's correct. And they were very helpful. Obviously, they're doing this all the time, and if they didn't have a document, they'll say, "Have you got this document?" And so we were pretty confident that we gave them all the documentation that we were advised of taking with us to the office, and so it was just a case. Then once that was done, it's a waiting game.
And how long did you wait?
12 weeks exactly.
Aha. So I think you got a stamp in your passport, I
We
think
have.
2.5 weeks ago or something.
Yes, it came through. Yes, 3 weeks yesterday it came through.
Yeah.
So
The visas from Manchester take longer than they do from London and Edinburgh.
Okay.
Hmm.
One of the many quirks of this whole process that Mark and I have talked about since they came in. But what you mentioned, Leslie, is that they are very familiar with this process now at the consulates, and it has become a bit more streamlined since 4 years ago. Would that be correct, Mark?
Yes, since BLS took over, we did have teething issues, but now that it's quite a fluid kind of process, and you know, as you've said, it can take a bit shorter in Edinburgh or London, but you know, they do give themselves 3 months to process the visa, and if there are further documents to be presented, then it may prolong slightly that process. But you know, the idea is to get everything all current and valid, and for them to post your, you know, courier your passports, and then it's planning your trip to Spain.
Mark, what happened? Obviously, with John and Leslie, they got all their documents in order thanks to your help. What about if one of the pieces of paper was missing or not there, or incorrect? What would have been the typical process?
Normally, you may actually get a requirement letter there and then from the BLS stipulating 10-day deadline to provide that missing document. Or in some cases, if the paperwork is received, as I said before, it goes to the consulate then to immigration. Perhaps immigration would want some more clarification, or some kind of bank statement or something like that, and they would send a letter, or in some cases they may even email the client. So it's important to keep an eye on your email. You know, when we're doing a police check, when we're doing the appointment and the visa, they will be communicating, and it's important to check your spam, because we don't want to miss deadline.
Okay. And Leslie, sorry, I mean, you and John, John's just had to go because he's been very ill recently. So it's amazing that you've got this very positive news. Yeah, you must have felt very relieved when you got the yes from the visa.
Oh, absolutely, because you're always on tenterhooks waiting for that email or whatever to say we need more information, because it goes quiet. It goes quiet. You don't, once you've put your application in, you can check on your status, but it doesn't seem to change. And
Yes.
and all of a sudden you get a message to say your visa's your passport's coming back. It doesn't even say that it's been approved until you open that package. Do you know that you've got your visa? So yes, it was like tenterhooks for 12 weeks, really.
Now, what happens now? Are you going to, do you have a certain time to actually go to Spain and do the next steps?
We do. We're fortunate that the visas have changed. It seems that our visa is for a year, so we've got sort of technically a year to make that move. So as soon as we set the date to when to make our final move, obviously we'll contact Mark to do the next step in finalising our residency in regards to like getting our TIE and getting our house at S1 activated.
Great. And that's actually just been a recent change, I think, Mark. That didn't it used to be that you used to have 3 months to actually get to Spain and do the next stage, but now this has been extended.
Exactly. You could put a start date in the visa, and you could even do that up to 6 months, later. But there is a 365-day kind of period now, which is quite good. And some clients, if they're selling their home in the UK, okay, and we're taxation is quite an important thing. Planning and taxation, some may arrive the following year to arrive without any issues for capital gains tax or things like that. So basically, you're able to plan even better. You don't have a small window.
A very positive development, I would say, because yes, there's always a question of if you move and you might be liable for capital gains tax on when you're selling your UK property, and in a current slow market in the UK, it might take longer than you think.
Exactly. So I think it's helping people to do more, the planning. Obviously, healthcare, there's like a 90 days or 3 months in advance you can contract it. So, rather than leaving it, basically, I think most people are raring to get to Spain and enjoy their new lives.
Yeah, Leslie, when do you hope to actually what's your plan now?
Oh, our plans have changed slightly.
Yeah.
But we hope to be out there by the end of this year, or the very latest, the early next year, and everything. So it gives us plenty of time to get everything in order in the UK.
Brilliant.
To start our new life.
Yeah, I think it will be so good for you in so many ways. How much, can you just give us an idea about how much the whole process has cost you?
Roughly, I would say for the two of us, this is obviously for two, I'd say from start to finish, round about £3,000. Obviously, some of the charges are in euros, so obviously the exchange rate will slightly alter that. But as a ballpark figure, I think from sort of the start to the actual finish, and that's getting our TIEs and our S1 and everything, roughly £3,000 for the two of us.
Thank you for that. Mark, I mean, from what I've heard from people, that seems to be a pretty typical figure. Would you agree?
Yes, for someone who would have access to public health care, that's the kind of sum. Obviously, if you don't have access to exportable healthcare, you'd need to, budget for private health insurance. So a little bit more for state pensioners, non-access to the public healthcare.
Brilliant. Okay, so if people are inspired by listening to you and John and Leslie about the process, how would they go about starting the process with you?
They can contact us, as I said, for a first free consultation, basically via telephone or via email. We'll have our details in the part of this webinar. You'll be able to get in the details, and we can organize and set up either face to face, or we can check the criteria and really see if you're eligible. And
Yeah. And I have a question, because I mean, John and Leslie bought their property at back in November. I mean, do you advise people to sort of get their property bought and then apply for the visa?
Well, we need to consider some clients may not be selling, so they don't need to worry about renting in the UK. Some, might have already bought, so they don't have to rent in Spain. We can, do it via rental, but if you've got your own home, basically, you're not losing money on rentals. So that's one of the main advantages of owning your own home. But when you're selling in the UK or wherever, basically it should be, in your interest for it to be your primary residence to get, an exemption of capital gains, rather than selling a year later when you're already in Spain, and then you may have a big tax bill. So timing, financial and tax, this all needs to be planned and timed correctly, and that's something we'll be able to go through with in the first free consultation.
quick final question from me. A question we often get at doing the seminars at A Place in the Sun, which we'll be doing soon at the NEC in Birmingham again. If you've bought your place, like Leslie and John had, does that count? Can that sort of be a beneficial thing in the visa application?
The visa application and for the renewals, they will consider for the financial means, paperwork, a property in Spain. Obviously there's less living costs.
Yes.
And basically, yes, you're right. To quantify it is difficult to really say, but it's always advantageous to provide evidence when you're doing the visa or the renewals that you do have a property. They won't accept property abroad, but in Spain, yes.
And because when you do the application, you do need a Spanish address, don't you?
Exactly. We should have a Spanish address, ideally where you're going to be living, because, for healthcare and for your residence card, ideally have everything set up with the correct address. So, some people will, however, as I said, have a rental. So it's these trips, like Leslie and John came to Spain, before doing the visa, it allows you to go and scout out a property to rent or to see a property if you wish to buy. So, really, there's so many different scenarios, and it's really, we need to try and assist clients and adapt to each circumstance.
Thank you. All right. And now, Leslie, to sum up, how did you find the whole process of getting your visa for Spain?
Easier than we expected. Obviously, with the help of Mark and his team, made it someone we could always go back to and ask if we had a problem. It is daunting, the amount of paperwork that is needed, which seems to be typical of the Spanish way of life anyway. But knowing you had someone behind you that was only a phone call away for help made it a lot more sort of less stressful, took a lot of the stress out of it. And also the fact that they would always say, yes, you will get a visa. Yes, you are eligible. So, any doubts were sort of taken away by Mark and his team. And, we can't thank them enough, really.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Well, look, I wish you both the best in your getting to Spain. Very exciting move. And thank you for your contribution here. How to get in touch with Sun Lawyers and further info comes with this webinar. Mark will be at the NEC and probably Manchester doing sessions on how to get a visa if people are interested to know more. So any closing thoughts from you?
We'll be there in Birmingham on the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So, anybody wishing could get a ticket, come and see us there. Basically, where there's a will, there's a way. And really, it's someone guiding like ourselves just to check, give the courage to the client and, really tell them their options. And basically, get the timing right is the key to the whole relocation, and get it all done in a timely fashion and to avoid any issues later.
Delays or hiccups. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't attempt to do it on my own after spending so much time interviewing people who have done the process. So, thank you both, Mark, Leslie. Best of luck to John. Thank you so much. Hope that's been useful to everyone listening. Thank you.
Thank you.